One of the most common types of economic headlines we see in the news every month is a headline like this. Unemployment falls to 3.4%. U.S. added 517,000 jobs in January. Well, what does it mean for the U.S. economy to add jobs or to lose jobs? How are we measuring the number of new jobs in the economy? It turns out that the measure of jobs that we use is something called Nonfarm Payrolls. You can find that in Fred using the code PAYEMS. Nonfarm Payrolls is collected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they release new data on the first Friday of each month. Let's go ahead and take a look at the data in Fred. So here is the non-farm payroll data directly from Fred. You can see it's growing over time. It shrinks or decreases a bit during recessions and then tends to increase again after that. So this is the number of jobs and the total number of jobs in the economy. But that's not usually what's reported in headlines. What's reported in headlines is the change in jobs from the prior month. So let's go ahead and go directly to Fred and calculate that ourselves. Alright, so I pulled up the data in Fred, non-farm payrolls. We want to measure the change in non-farm payrolls from the previous month, so if we edit our graph, go to Units and click Change, because this is monthly data, that will be the change from the prior month. And you can see there's variation over time with a very large decrease in the number of jobs during the COVID recession. Let's zoom in on the more recent data. As you can see here, we've got small positive changes in most months. If we zoom in to the end here, January had a change in jobs from December of 517,000, which matches the headline from the Wall Street Journal. Now, what exactly is a non-farm payroll? And why do we use that for our measure of jobs? Well, this measure is created by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It represents about 80% of the workers who contribute to GDP. Importantly, it does not include farm employees, hence the name, but it also doesn't include sectors of the economy that are a little bit hard to measure. Unpaid volunteers, private household employees, so think of employing a nanny, for example, or self-employed individuals who have not incorporated their business. Nonetheless, it's a pretty comprehensive measure of workers in the United States that's tracked primarily through state unemployment insurance systems. Why do we exclude the farmers or the agricultural workers from this measure? Well, the answer is mostly historical. In the mid-1800s, around half of Americans lived on farms. Farming was an incredible, relevant part of the U.S. economy. And then the U.S. economy started to industrialize, and this change in the type of jobs led to some political strife as workers tried to unionize, and there was violence against workers. And what came out of those unionization movements was a new government agency, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which was founded in part to track what was going on with industrial workers' wages and working conditions. So their original motivation was focused on the industrial economy. Later, in the Great Depression era, the mission of the BLS was expanded to other industries, but they did that primarily based on data from state unemployment insurance programs, as well as data from the New Deal. And those things largely excluded agriculture, and so agricultural jobs just were not tracked. Today, we could track farming in the jobs measure, but farming has decreased as a percentage of the workforce. Now there are only about 0.5% of U.S. workers who are employed in agriculture, and so there's just not a lot of incentive to change historical methods. On top of which, agricultural employment is a little bit different than other employment in that a lot of it is seasonal, and a lot of it is made up of undocumented workers, and so as a result, we just do not include agriculture in our measure of jobs that's reported in the news. Okay, well, what do we learn from non-farm payrolls? A couple of things. Of course, we get an overall picture of is the economy adding jobs or are we losing jobs? But we can also zoom in on this data to learn how are jobs distributed across the economy. So we can measure at the metro area which areas of the United States are adding the most jobs, or which areas of the United States are shrinking in terms of the number of jobs. And that can be useful to track the geography of the labor markets across the United States. We can also break up the jobs numbers by industry, and so we can get a sense of where are the job gains or the job losses concentrated across the economy. And so, for example, if we break down this January number of 517,000 jobs, you'll see that, okay, the bulk of those jobs came from adding jobs in the service sector. And keeping track of which industries are growing or shrinking can give us a sense of what direction the economy is moving. So, in conclusion, we'll measure jobs added or lost to the U.S. economy using this non-farm payrolls measure. The primary thing we report is the change in non-farm payrolls from month to month, and that data is directly available in FRED.